Hey gang, today we're going to start looking at creating some effects using some type, and we're actually going to work with an olive oil bottle. So we're going to pull that olive oil bottle up. We're going to actually work on the label a little bit, add some text to it, and put some graphical elements that are created from text that may not look like text once they're laid out on the bottle. So here we go. We got here's the Photoshop screen. I've got my layers palette up. It's probably all I'm going to need today is just that layers palette, and we're also going to be working with a characters palette, but those are the only two palettes we'll use today. So let's go ahead. We're going to go to File and Open. We're going to actually go into the Dropbox, and what you want to do, I'm already there, but I will actually back up. So just to show you, I'm actually going to my Dropbox. You go into your lesson files in your Photoshop folder. Just let me find my Photoshop and then into lessons, and we want to get into lesson 8, and you'll see the PSD files in front of you. The one we want to start, or the one we want to begin with is 08start.psd, which is basically just an olive oil bottle. The background is an olive oil bottle with a label that's primarily made up of just 3 rectangles, different color rectangles on the olive oil bottle. Let me slide this over here. We are going to be working with this label, but before we even do that, we're going to be working with some guides, horizontal and vertical guides. So let's make sure we're all looking at the same thing on your screen. Excuse me. You'll notice that my rulers are up. So if your rulers aren't even up, first things first, go to View, and you'll see rulers about halfway down the menu. Obviously, if there's a check on it, that means they're up and going on your screen. If there is no check, you don't have your rulers on, go ahead and click it. If the check mark's not on, you'll also, the keyboard shortcut, you'll see it on the right side, Control R. Either way, you can turn them on or off, either using the keyboard shortcut or just by clicking on this command. So that turns my rulers on. You see my rulers, and you'll notice my rulers are in inches. Default for Photoshop in terms of rulers is in pixels. So you may want to go change that for yourself. Go to the Edit menu. Go down to Preferences, and you will see Units and Rulers. It may be off the screen now, but you'll see Units and Rulers down there. You click on that, and it allows you to go to Units and Rulers, and you change the rulers to inches if it's in pixels. Okay, so I think we're all looking at the same thing here. We've got our bottle. I've got my rulers up in units and pixels. So what I want to do is zoom in on this white portion of the label. So I'm going to grab my zoom tool. I'm going to draw a selection box around that. Actually, I'm going to do it again so I can keep zooming in. Let me expand this picture a little bit. Zoom in again. So it allows me to get nice and tight to the white label. So here's my white label. I'm going to add some text up in here, which will allow us to name the bottle. Before I do that, though, I want to make sure my text is going to lay out on the label exactly where I want it. And in order to do that, I can get some help for some vertical guides. What the guides allow you to do is draw some guidelines in here that would never print, or the only place it would show up would be on the screen when the olive oil bottle is there. So here's how you put a guide in here. I look at the ruler, and in essence, if I was to pull this completely out, you'd see the whole picture. You'll see the whole picture is roughly 7 inches wide. So if I wanted to make sure my text was right in the middle, I would like a guide here at the 3.5 inch mark. Here's how you do it. You go over to the left side ruler, you push down on the mouse button, and you just start dragging. You'll see a line appear, and I slide that guide over to the 3.5 inch mark, get it close, and there's your blue guide. Once again, I can't stress enough, this is just a visual guide on the Photoshop file. Notice there's no layer that gets created or anything like that. So this is just here for you to see, for the purposes of organizing and arranging and placing things graphically on a page, on a picture. So I got my guide in there. I'm ready to go. I'm going to put the name of the olive oil in there. And let's go up top here. I click on the text tool over here. And then I'm going to go up top, and I'm looking at, let's use Myriad Pro for your font, and then we'll make it bold, and I'm going right across the top here, so we'll go to bold, and these are already set up to go. The size that I want is not in the menu, so you're going to actually have to click in there and delete what's ever there, and you're going to type in 79 point. That's what we want. Anti-alias is smooth. That's fine, which is next menu over, and then the alignment, I want it to be centered. So those are your options here for your text. The minute you've got those in, go ahead and click on the white label. And here's the name of the bottle, O-L-I-O, Oleo. Makes sense for olive oil, doesn't it? So I type my text in there, Oleo. Whatever color it appears, it's no biggie if you want to change it to black or change it to something else. If I just double click on the word, it highlights the word, and I can go in here and change the text color if I'd like. But I'm all set. I got black in there. Notice it made a text layer over here on your layers palette. And then now all I want to do is I want to slide this into the label, and I want to make sure it's halfway. So basically my vertical guide is going to cut right through the bottom of the L, and I'm going to make sure I could put horizontal guides in here too if I wanted to, which we'll do in a second, but that's going to be good enough for me right there. So it's kind of in the middle. And the next step is something called a clipping mask. And what a clipping mask allows you to do is it allows you to take a graphic element, stick it in here as a layer, and then basically what we're going to do is it's a picture of olives. And what we're going to do is make the olives show through just the words over here. So it's almost like a shaded piece, and then the olives will show through the word, kind of like a window, if you would. Like the letters of Oleo will form a window into the olive picture. It's a neat effect. A lot of people use it in Photoshop, so we're ready to pull in that olive. So I'm going to go to File and Open. I'm going to go back to the Dropbox folder in Lesson 8, and you'll see an olives.psd file. I'm going to open that up, and I got two pictures going. So real quickly, all I need to do is bring the olives picture into my other picture. So I just drag it from one picture to the other, and it comes up as a layer called Layer 1. I can now shut down the olives picture because I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to rename the Layer 1 layer and call it, crazily enough, olives. So I got an olives layer just added and a text Oleo layer. I want to shrink the olives layer so it's about the same size as the label. So I'm going to go up to Edit. I'm going to go into my Transform menu, and I'm going to go to Scale. And here are your transform handles. I'm going to hold down the Shift key because I want it to keep the proportion straight. And I'm going to resize it roughly about the same size as the label, give or take. The minute I'm done, don't get too detailed on this. It's not a big deal, but get it as close as you can. The minute I'm done with the transform, I can either click the check mark here, or I can hit the Enter key, which I'm going to do on the keyboard, and it applies the transformation. Now I'm going to move the olives right over the white label. And here's the trick to clipping masks. You have to make sure, basically I want the olives to shine through the text of Oleo. A couple of things here. Obviously used a big enough text and a thick enough text where you could see the olives. If I was using a very thin text, it wouldn't work out too well. So I use that Myriad Pro, which is a thick text. And then the second thing you want to worry about is make sure the olives layer is above the layer that you want the olives to show through. The minute at which I've got that, I've got the olives layer and the Oleo text layer. So the minute I got that, I right click on the olives layer and I say create clipping mask, and watch what happens. So in essence, your thumbnail of your layer pushes over and you've got a downward arrow there saying this is a clipping mask, and it's shining through the text of Oleo. If I'm on this layer, I can actually move the olives. You see the olives move behind the text. So I'm just going to kind of put it where I want it, just so you can kind of see that they're olives. And the minute that's done, I want to be able to move, if I ever want to move this text or change this text, I got to make sure these two layers are linked. So I'm going to shift click the Oleo text layer. So both are now highlighted, and I'm going to link those layers. So now that if I move them around, they move around as one unit, which is very important too. And last thing I'm going to do is throw a drop shadow on this, little 3D effect on here. So I click on the Oleo layer and I go up to image, go up to layer and go to layer style, or you could have clicked the FX, and I'm going to add a drop shadow. And I'm going to pull this down, so I can see it. Everything's fine here, multiply and all that is all fine, and angle 120 is probably what you want. And I don't want it that thick, so I'm going to bring the opacity down to 35%. And I click OK, and I got a nice little drop shadow behind the text there. we'll stop right here. We're going to do some other things on the label. We'll see you in a bit.